Hello, BookTube. Well, here we are again, the last mail haul of the week. Our last chance to piggishly squeal about something new that comes in the mail, and then there stretches out a long, long expanse of mail-free time. We have lots of stuff to do. We'll make lots of videos tomorrow, but this is our the last glimmer of the light on the rocks of mail until Monday. So we have a fairly good pile, unless it could double in size if my Ninja mail driver shows up at 9 at night. but as it is, it's okay. I only require about 8 or 10 new books a day, and it looks like it's about that. It's been a wonderful day here in Boston. It's been the first small taste of any kind of human temperature. It's still 21 mile an hour wind. Not in gusts, just steadily blowing 21 mile an hour wind out of the same quadrant that has been blowing non-stop since mid-December. Not possible to wear a hat, not possible to wear a jacket without zipping it up, otherwise the wind will just rip it right off you. But it was a warmer wind today. I have decided, sort of informally, that my comfort range for temperatures in the Fahrenheit scale is when if you take the day's projected high temperature and you double it, the resulting number is something that it would make me very, very comfortable. So 40 degrees is very cold, because twice 40 is 80, and that is still a little on the chilly side. Today, the temperature in Boston went up to about 60. Just about. And a daytime high of 120 degrees would suit me right down to the ground. So it was a bright sunny day as well. There was of course the constant wind, but other than that, it was a perfect day for walking one's little schnauzer. That's exactly what I did. We have, like I mentioned the last time, these spring-like days are still an anomaly. After today, we're projected tomorrow to get rain, and then the temperatures plunge back into the 40s. So spring-like days like this, when Frida and I can go out and walk around at a greater distance, are really serving to underscore that both of us need to walk a little more before we're ready for the summer. But we still had fun. And when we weren't walking, I was on my couch in the other room, writing one book review after another. Oh, such a treat. There was sarcasm, there was praise, and there was also something of a Steve's specialty, something I don't do that often. You might think that I do from my reactions to the mail that we go through every day. But I'm talking about a written review, something where I sit and think, something where vain or not, I am considering that thing is lodged for eternity. So it requires more than the off-the-cuff reactions of a book that I get in the mail. And so the kind of review that you could call a buzzsaw review, just a takedown of the book, where I don't even bother to try and hypothesize whether or not some imaginary reader might like it, where I just eviscerate it. I don't do many of that kind of review. I could, because unlike a lot of reviewers, I have my own website. I have Open Letters Review. And my fellow editors on the masthead are perfectly happy to let me write what I want. So there are no nattering nabobs of negativity at Open Letters Review. So I could savage a book every day if I wanted to. But I like to accentuate the positive. Most of my other venues explicitly want to do that. They want to review positively, to review positive books, to bring to our readers' attention the books that are worth their time and money, rather than bring to their attention the books that aren't, and just for the fun of watching us bash it around. And I agree with that. But on my own home turf, I can write whatever I please. And so I did one of those today, and that's always a sinus clearing exercise. I strongly advise it. But you have to have your game on to do it. It's easy to praise. You have to be perfect to bash. It's like that old saying, if you're going to shoot at the king, make sure you hit him. But anyway, that doesn't affect us today, except that I had a marvelous day. Absolutely marvelous. It is so wonderful to be able to sit out in that other room. It's my couch, my little all-purpose couch out there, that it's just the right size for reading and it's just the right size for writing. It's not particularly, it's a little too short for sleeping, but it's just the right size for everything else of any kind. and it sits in the corner of a room. You've seen videos from there. It sits in a corner of a room between two windows, one here and one there. So if it's cold outside, that corner, no matter what, I mean, this is a horrible, drafty place to live, but even if the rest of the place is semi-bearable, that corner is not inhabitable if it's cold. So for half the year, I can't use that wonderful writing space. And I was able to use it today for the first projected time, for the first prolonged time in 2019. It felt wonderful. So it took a lot to tempt me away from there, but you're worth it. and you might notice that we've gone 6 minutes into the video that is a mail haul without touching the mail. So now let's do that. Frida is all fired up. So I'm assuming that she will tear into these packages. Actually, quite a few of you don't know who I'm talking about when I say Frida. This is Frida. This is my little miniature schnauzer, who is my helper when it comes to opening the mail. She's usually off camera, but she's adorable. she's she's just adorable. You're adorable. But anyway, let's see what we have here for mail. Let's see what, maybe there'll be something squeal-worthy in here. You never know. It's not impossible. Let's see. Okay, first one starts with poetry. We start with poetry. This is in April. Yeah, April 2nd. Everything in the World's coming out on April 2nd. We saw this already, but this is the finished copy of Campbell McGrath's Nouns and Verbs, New and Selected Poems. I'm thinking that in April I will dip into this a few times during the course of the month for Poetry Tuesday, which I have sadly neglected, but which is coming back next week. I'm thinking that I'll certainly do this for Poetry Tuesday, this coming Poetry Tuesday, but maybe a couple more. And maybe we'll mix it up. Usually we take poems, I take poems from the New Yorker, but maybe we'll mix it up with poetry releases from April. Just so you know what's out there. So this is a poetry collection. It's just covered in blurbs on the back, in hardcover. Good for him. Actually, this will allow me to know what Campbell McGrath looks like. Oh my! He's the author of 10 previous books, 9 of them available from Echo, the publisher of this book. He's received numerous prestigious awards for his poetry, including a MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant and a Guggenheim Fellowship. Good Lord. And he lives with his family in Miami Beach. And that is our poet. That is a wonderful face. So, all right, let's move on here. Ready, Dean? Grab this one too. All right, what is next here? Okay, this is a June book. It is Conviction by Denise Mina. Conviction. It's a snake wrapped around an anvil. Or an anchor. A snake wrapped around an anchor. In a time of by-the-numbers thrillers and mysteries with redundant plot points and characters, and in parentheses we are told, how many girls can one possibly read about? Okay, I agree with that completely, of course. I'm not the only booktuber who hated that fad when it was in its bloom, where literally every book that came out was the girl who something or other. Denise Mina's writing is always fresh and unexpected. Okay, I wouldn't promise that if I were you. I really wouldn't. As much a fan as I am of the genre, anybody who's read, what is this? By the numbers, thrillers and mysteries? If you've read a lot of thrillers and mysteries, you know that they are all by the numbers. It's just a question of execution. It's not a question of content or organization. That's an impossible bar to clear. I wouldn't lead with that. Whether it's one of her beloved series featuring Alex Moreau, Patty Meehan, or Maureen O'Donnell, or a standalone like the true crime retelling The Long Drop, a lot of you might remember The Long Drop, readers have come to know that when they are reading a book by Denise Mina, they are squarely in the deft hands of a true master. And with this book, the master now delivers a breathtaking standalone thriller about Anna McLean, a wealthy housewife who finds her entire life and the fake identity that's propped it up until now crashing down around her as a true crime podcast and a photo posted on social media reveals her troubled past. As she finds out her husband has left her for her best friend, and a man from her past has turned up dead, now the subject of her favorite true crime podcast, she embarks on a wild ride across Europe in an attempt to avoid killers and rabid Twitter followers alike. I'd stick them on each other. That ought to work. And then it goes on to tell us about the author who's written a ton of novels and lives in Glasgow. And I know this author. Why do I know this author? I know this author. I cannot for the life remember that. It wasn't The Long Drop. I read The Long Drop, but I know this author from something else. I don't remember. Well, anyway, I will find out. I have time to find out because this is a June release, so I don't have to worry about it for now, God knows, because the 2nd of April is going to be an Everest enough to climb. So let's move on. That exhausts the manila envelopes. All the rest of this is cardboard. I'm wearing a cardboard belt. All the rest of this is cardboard. So we'll just see what these have to offer. Some of them are these big white 42nd Street boaters here that Freedom much prefers. Oh, what is this, baby bean? What are you doing? What? Where did this? What on earth? I looked down and what on earth? I look down on the floor where she's dismembering manila envelopes, and I see another book. I see another book. What on earth? Where did this come from? Literally, where did this come from? Okay, well, this is in April. This is the finished copy of Best Movie Year Ever, which I remember correctly, the year is 1989. Is that right? 1999. This is the finished copy of the book that says that 1999 was the greatest year in the history of movie making. With movies like Fight Club, The Matrix, Office Space, Election, The Blair Witch Project, The Sixth Sense, Being John Malkovich, Star Wars The Phantom Menace, Boys Don't Cry, The Best Man, Eyes Wide Shut, Three Kings, Magnolia, 10 Things I Hate About You, Cruel Intentions, and Varsity Blues. And this is the finished copy, so it will have all of the artwork. I don't know how it got on the floor. It must have been in a package that I opened. Maybe the Denise Mina package? I don't really know. All right. Well, anyway, this is the finished copy of Best Movie Year Ever that somehow appeared out of nowhere. Now, let's look at the one that was actually in the package that we opened. Okay, so this is from the folks at Soho Press. And it is Here Is What You Do, a collection of stories by Chris Dennis, who is striking a very come-hither casual pose in his author's photo. Unless he's taking his own pulse, he's actually trying to appear very nonchalant about being in an author photo. So who is he when he's at home? He holds an MFA in fiction from Washington University in St. Louis, where he also received a postgraduate fellowship. His work has appeared in Granta, McSweeney's, West Branch, and News Stories from the Midwest. No novel mentioned. Is this a debut? It is. This is a debut short story collection. Okay. Okay, so what have we got here? From a stark, daring new literary talent in contemporary LGBT fiction comes Here Is What You Do, the debut short story collection by Chris Dennis. A wide-ranging study of our own complex natures. Okay. How much do you want to make a bet not? Dennis draws from lived experience to paint this remarkably raw portrait of tenderness and brutal human encounters. Okay, a wide-ranging study of our own complex natures will feature straight people. Think there'll be any meaningful characterization in this book? If it draws from the author's experiences, we shall see. It should also feature, as far as I understand, cis people. As far as I understand that term, it means people who are comfortable in their own sexuality. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering now how representative this book will be. Let's see what kinds of stories we're talking about here. A yacht race to outrun a tsunami. Can't be done. A young man jailed on a drug charge forms a relationship with his cellmate that is both loving and savage. A teen raised by his out and proud father, a Turkish immigrant, is displaced after violence fractures his life, forever altering his sense of time and memory. A wistful mother escapes her reality and regrets by losing herself in the miniature world she finds at the edges of the wood. Perfect for readers of Carmen Maria Machado, Garth Greenwell, and A.M. Holmes, Here Is What You Do is a powerful, timely story collection by a vital new voice in queer fiction. As I've said before on this channel, I don't honestly know what queer fiction is anymore, unless that just means the characters. But does that mean we're going to have businessman fiction? for all the books out there that star businessmen. Assassin fiction? I honestly don't know, unless it's talking about the author. But if that term is talking about the author, it's a regressive move to use it, not a progressive one. But let's see here. Dennis's debut is a bravura of muscularly robust prose that captures the raw need, desire, cruelty, and promise of people trying to connect with and consume each other. Ew. The story's complex themes, trauma, addiction, the prison system, queer identity, isolation and crushing loneliness, validation, and everything in between. Not Sunday football. Not walking down the street unmolested. Not marrying and having a kid. Not everything in between. Are tackled with an unfailing eye for human drives and frailties. Okay, well, the pub sheet is sold on the book. And apparently so is the executive director of Soho. This is a note from the editor is included with the book. That's not usual anymore. Used to be. I'm Chris, Dennis's editor at Soho Press. During the editorial process for Here Is What You Do, Chris was arrested on drug possession charges and is currently awaiting trial. Good Lord. We believe strongly in the merits of this book. Well, the two are unconnected, right? So, obviously, you're publishing it. Chris had not previously been to jail, but the fact that the book opens with a story about a young man going to prison for drug possession speaks to Chris's ability to write into his own fears and vulnerabilities and emerge with literature of the highest caliber. The stories here are wildly various and reflective of Chris's enormous talent, but they are also united by a mixture of hope and despair and a persistent sense of the precariousness of the lives of his characters and the ways in which they act out, often with the best of intention, but to self-harm. Chris understands this precariousness deeply from his own lived experience. Okay. All right. But he was arrested during the editorial process for the book. So his understanding had to have come before that. I wonder what the point of this note is then. Is it to get in front of the story? The gossip of the author being arrested for, what was it again? Drug possession charges? Why on earth would you mention that? I mean, are you worried that a reviewer might find that out and that it might come up in a review if it's a matter of public record? And also, there's no connection between his arrest record and his literary talent. I don't know. All right, I don't know what that's doing there. But anyway, I have time to look into it. I'm certainly not going to look into the author's personal history. When have I ever done that? I'll look into the book. I'll read the book, which comes out as a paperback in late June. Huh. The editor's note is bothering me. I don't know why that would be there. Why would you put that in there? I mean, I'm not being heartless towards the author, but what difference does it make? I mean, that note won't go to the public, obviously. What difference does it make to the editor or book reviewer who gets it? Are they supposed to avoid mentioning it in the review, or are they supposed to mention it? I don't know one way or another. Okay, well, anyway, let's move on. We've got more cardboard to do here. I'm unnerved by that editor's note, and I'm unnerved by a finished copy of a book that appeared on the floor. So let's try and keep some more of those to a minimum here. What is this next one? Okay, this next one is not known to me. It's a memoir by Paolo Cognetti, and it's called The Wild Boy. It's a boy's profile with wilderness in the background. Kind of an eye-catching cover. It's got a blurb from the New York Times and the Irish Times. It's coming out in July. Okay, what have we got here? A young man escapes his painful past by retreating to the rustic comfort of the Italian Alps in this gorgeously wrought memoir from the internationally best-selling author of the exquisite novel The Eight Mountains. It's a memoir. About the author who apparently retreats to the rustic comfort of the Italian Alps. I've spent a great deal of time in the Italian Alps. Oh boy, is it nice. Rustic is the word, though. When life in the city becomes too overwhelming for Paolo, he decides to take refuge high in the Italian mountains. Returning to the breathtaking... okay, where are we going here? Returning to the breathtaking town known for its snow-capped mountain peaks, after a decade's absence, he rediscovers a simpler life and develops deep human connections with two neighbors. In this stunning landscape, he begins to take stock of his life and consider what he truly values. With lyrical and evocative prose, The Wild Boy is a testament to the power of the natural world and necessity of an ever-questioning mind and the resilience of the human spirit. Okay. All right, but, okay. All right, it's 160 pages long. The author is an Italian writer, novelist, and editor from Milan. He divided his time between the city and his cabin in the Italian Alps. He's the author of The Wild Boy and 8 Mountains, an international sensation that won the Strega Prize. Okay, so he's only written the 2 books. This also comes out in paperback in early July. Is this translated? It is. It's translated from the Italian by Erica Segre and Simon Carnell. Okay. Well, I guess it all depends on the vividness of the prose, but my first question is why I would bother to read a memoir by this guy. He's written 1 novel. He's a young man who's written 1 novel. Why would I bother to read a memoir of him, even in the Italian Alps? But I've had such things be interesting. I'm glad, for instance, at least, that in 2019 this is not being billed as a novel. It could easily be. Right, this is turning into a psychedelically disturbing mail haul. I'm now yearning for a Steve book, even 1, before we're done here. Let's just forge on. What is this next one? Okay, the next one is this another paperback original? It is, isn't it? Yes, this is another paperback original. Okay, this is a romance novel. This is Swimming for Sunlight by Allie Larkin. Quite the cover. Katie only wants one thing from her divorce settlement: custody of her dog, named Bark. From Allie Larkin, author of the feel-good debut, Stay, comes Swimming for Sunlight, a charming story about Katie Ellis and her anxious rescue dog, Barkimedes, who moved back to her Florida hometown with her grandmother, Nan, as Katie begins to rebuild her life. Lost and uprooted, Katie finds comfort in the familiarity of the home where she was raised, her childhood best friend, and Nan's longtime neighbors who feel like family. But Katie quickly learns that a lot has changed while she was away. Oh, I wonder if there's a man involved in those changes. Nan is almost unrecognizable. She's toned, drinks hemp milk, and teaches aquatic dance class. That she's already instantly my favorite character. She shows Katie photos from her youth when Nan danced underwater as a mermaid performer at a roadside attractions show based on the real Wiki-Waki mermaids in Florida. Clad in a tail and seashell top alongside other young women. Thus begins Katie's quest to reunite the long-scattered mermaids and produce a reunion show complete with elaborate costumes while attempting to overcome her crippling fear of water. As faithful but nervous Bark struggles to acclimate to their new surroundings and an old love re-enters the picture, Katie struggles to balance her hopes with her anxieties and realizes just how much Bark's fears are connected to her own. Okay. That's kind of an odd novel summary, isn't it? First of all, the pub sheet does not make clear whether the new love is hers or Bark's. I suppose, since we're all human, we're supposed to assume that it's hers. But who is this author when she's at home? Internationally best-selling author of novels Stay and Why I Can't Be You. Her short fiction has been published in Somerset Review and Slice, and nonfiction in anthologies as well. She lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with her husband Jeremy and their fearful, faithful German Shepherd Stella. Okay, all right. So it's a contemporary romance. Comes out in late April in paperback, and it's got a dog theme in it. But all right, let's move on. Let's move on to this next one. I'm now wondering if this is going to be an entire mail haul without anything related to me, even lightly. Let's see what this next one is. Okay. All right. Okay, this is from FSG. This is the finished copy of The Death and Life of Ida Hernandez by Aaron Bobrow-Strain. Never heard of this thing before. I don't think I have. The author is a professor of politics at Whitman College in Washington State, where he teaches courses dealing with food, immigration, and the U.S.-Mexico border. And this book, this sheet does not tell me what it is. It's got an author bio, it's got the author's tour dates, and it's got a bunch of blurbs. So what are we talking about here? In 1987, when Ida Hernandez was born in Agua Prieta, Mexico, the U.S. border at the edge of town was little more than a worn-down fence. 8 years later, Ida's mother took her and her siblings to live in the adjacent community of Douglas, Arizona. By then, that very same border had become one of the most heavily policed sites in America. Undocumented, Ida sought to make her way in the United States. She learned English, watched Friends, and after having a baby at 16, dreamed of moving with her son to New York City and teaching dance. But life had other plans. Following a misstep that led her to her deportation and separation from her son, Ida found herself in a Mexican city marked by violence. To get back to the United States and reunite with her child, she embarked upon a harrowing journey. Ida, the daughter of a celebrated rebel from the mountains of Chihuahua, had a genius for survival, but returning to the United States was just the beginning of her quest for safety, security, and a new life for herself and her son. Taking us into detention centers, immigration courts, and the streets of Agua Prieta and Douglas, this book reveals the inner lives of Ida and her other daring characters, the history of the borderlands, and the human consequences of militarizing what was once a forgiving boundary. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't. This mail haul is taking it out of me. I have sort of consistently followed. I've tried to consistently follow through on leeching as much politics out of this channel as possible. A lot of you have been very forgiving. A lot of you said that. A lot of you have emailed me and said you are the one who's always talking about about good booktube channels being a visit with a friend, a conversation with a friend. So if you want to talk about politics, we want to hear about it. Quite a few of you have said that, but this is still a book channel, and it's not. That's not a branding thing. That's actually personal as well. Most of my life involves books. It's just that some books are overtly political, and although this one is straining not to be, it clearly is. It calls Ida, the daughter of a famous revolutionary from Chihuahua, an expert at survival. Well, Ida wouldn't have had anything to survive if she'd entered the country legally. If she'd become a citizen, she wouldn't have any problems. The only reason that she was deported because of a slip-up was because she was an illegal alien in this country. The United States is not exactly draconian when it comes to the processes by which you can become a citizen, for God's sake. And Douglas, Arizona, has mechanisms in place for that, and it's not far from other places that do as well. And perforce now, any talk of immigration policy is political. It has become the most politicized subject in the country, thanks to the 2016 presidential election. I sympathize with Ida, but she entered this country illegally when she could have entered it legally. She stayed in this country illegally when she could have been working for citizenship. She had a child in this country when knowing perfectly well that a slip-up might happen and what it would mean. And it's not like this is a zero-sum thing. It's not like if you don't slip into America illegally and live clandestinely in the shadows for your whole life, then you must stay in your crime-ridden village, the one that's mentioned in that pub sheet. It's not, and that is not the either-or choice here. The other choice is for you to become a citizen of the United States, in which case no one can get rid of you at all, in which case you're perfectly free to stay. Anyway, this is our author. And he is a professor of politics at Whitman College. And his writing has appeared in The Believer, The Chronicle Review, Salon, and Gastronomica. And he's also the author of White Bread, A Social History of the Store-Bought Loaf, which I think I read. Now that I think about it, I'll have to look it up on Amazon to see the cover. But I think I read White Bread, and I think I really liked it. In the 1990s, he worked on the U.S.-Mexico border as an activist and educator. and he is a founding member of the Walla Walla Immigrant Rights Coalition in Washington State. Okay, well, it's interesting. It comes out in late April. There's still been no Steve book in here, and we've only got one package left, so I don't think it's going to happen. So the last mail haul of the week is more duty than pleasure. So let's see what this is. We'll finish it up, and then I will clean up the floor, and that'll be that. Okay. All right. This is a finished copy of a book we've seen on this channel before. I read it and quite liked it. So it comes out in early May. It is by Sarah Blake, and it is the guest book. And in this case, I'm kind of happy that they kept the cover. I don't know if you can make it out in this odd, catch-as-catch-can lighting. But that is not just a sepia tone photo. There are all sorts of, there's a slight seepage of sand color here. There's a slight seepage of rock and foliage color up there. And the composition is good. The only quibble that I have with it is that the big, gaudy, raised letter title in red of the guest book obscures the woman. And I wish that weren't the case. I wish that it could easily be done otherwise. Like, for instance, the, in small letters, guest, and then book would free the cover up there. This is kind of clumsy to put it across like that. But even so, this is a very pretty finished copy.